Hello, darling. It's Rose. Let me tell you something that still burns in the back of my throat like smoke. I was sitting at my kitchen table, spoon deep in a bowl of potato salad I'd made for the occasion, when my phone buzzed. A text from my daughter in law, just 4 words. Your name isn't here. No hello, no explanation. Just a blunt confirmation that the guest list to my own son's wedding, a wedding I'd dreamed about since the day I first held him, had been finalized and I was not on it. I stared at those words, feeling the chill crawl up my arms like frost. The RSVP card was still on my fridge, pinned there with a magnet shaped like a tiny wedding bell. I had circled the date in red. May 17th. I'd already bought a navy dress, nothing flashy, just something elegant and respectful. I even found a pair of low heels I could walk in without wobbling. But it didn't matter, because my name wasn't there. I called him, my son, Paul. He picked up on the second ring, his voice all tight and cheerful like he was trying to smile through a mouthful of glass. Hi, Mom. You forgot to include me? I asked, my voice quieter than I meant it to be. It came out more like a whisper. There was a pause, just long enough to slice me open. It's complicated, he said. It's not about you, it's better this way. Better for who? He didn't answer. I looked around my kitchen, the sun through the window warming the linoleum floor, the framed photo of Paul at age 6 with a missing tooth and a chocolate-stained shirt. I had been there for every school play, every heartbreak, every scraped knee. I was the one who taught him to tie his shoes, to say thank you, to call his grandmother on Sundays. I raised him with both hands, held him through the storms of his young life. But now apparently I was too much for a guest list. Too embarrassing maybe, too old, too divorced, too ordinary. My hands trembled. I looked down and realized I'd crushed the paper napkin in my fist without realizing. And something inside me, well, something small but vital, began to break. I didn't say goodbye. I hung up. I didn't cry either, not then. The tears came later when I opened the closet to put away the navy dress and found the tissue paper, still nestled in the box. I had imagined dancing with him that night. I had imagined watching him say his vows, clapping with the rest of the room, seeing him smile the way he used to when he spotted me in the crowd. But that version of the future had been erased, scrubbed out. Your name isn't here. That sentence echoed in my head like a bell tolling for the dead. And the worst part? It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. The next morning, I poured my tea and sat at the window watching the robins peck the grass. I told myself I was fine, that I didn't need a wedding to feel like a mother, that I had dignity. But beneath the surface, something ugly was stirring, a question I couldn't stop asking. Why did they cut me out? And what did I do, or not do, to deserve being forgotten? The answers weren't simple, but they were coming. And I was ready to find every last one of them. It didn't happen all at once, you know. These things rarely do. Estrangement isn't always a loud, dramatic rupture. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's the space between phone calls that gets longer, the birthdays that become texts instead of visits, the laughter that feels rehearsed. Looking back now, I can see it. I can trace the fault lines like an old map. They started the day Paul got serious about her. Nina. She was poised, pretty in a brittle way. Her words always came with a layer of gloss, like she'd practiced them in the mirror first. I wanted to like her. God, I tried to like her. I smiled through the awkward first dinners, complimented her on store-bought salads, nodded politely when she said things like, Paul tells me you're still in that old house, as if I were a relic she'd stumbled across in an antique shop. Still, I tried. That's what you do when you're a mother and your son brings someone home. You try. But over time, I noticed how she never looked me in the eye when she spoke, how she never stayed in the same room with me for more than a few minutes, how she'd touch Paul's arm whenever I said something. A tiny signal, like she was staking a claim. And Paul. Oh, Paul, my sweet boy. He started shifting, too. Subtle at first. The way he'd correct me in front of her. The way he stopped bringing up our old inside jokes. Then he stopped calling just to say hello. Every conversation was filtered through Nina. Nina thinks we should wait. Nina says it's better if... Nina's parents already offered to help with the wedding, so we don't want too many opinions. Too many opinions. That's what I had become to him. A difficult opinion in a life they were curating like an Instagram feed. I remember one afternoon sitting in my living room, wrapped in a cardigan I used to knit when Paul was in college. I was holding a mug of chamomile, half drunk and already cold, when I realized I hadn't been invited to their engagement dinner. I didn't think you'd want to drive into the city, Paul had said, like he was doing me a favor. As if I were too old, too tired, too out of place for a restaurant full of 20 somethings with perfect skin and zero understanding of sacrifice. That night, I opened the linen closet and pulled out the box of things I'd been saving: old cards, finger painted art from kindergarten, a crumpled piece of paper where Paul had once written, "I love you, Mommy," with a backwards I. I held that note like it was a telegram from another lifetime. From a version of my son who used to run to the door when I came home from work, who used to fall asleep with his head in my lap. I thought maybe I'd imagined the distance, that it was all in my head, that I was being dramatic, until the wedding planning began. I wasn't asked for input, not even about the date, not the flowers, not the venue, not even the guest list. When I asked casually who else was going, "Just so I know what to wear," I said, masking the ache behind my smile. Paul had blinked at me and said, "Did Nina not tell you?" "I think we're keeping it really small, just close friends and immediate family." Immediate family. I was his mother. So I asked him, one last time, face to face, if I was still invited. We were sitting at a coffee shop, his hands wrapped around a tall, iced something. I was drinking plain hot tea. And he looked at me, tired, distracted, and said, "It's just complicated, Mom. Nina thinks your energy doesn't really mix with the vibe we're going for." My energy. He said it like I was a scent he couldn't wash off. I excused myself before I cried, drove home with my vision blurry and my heart sinking lower with every red light. And when I got home, I tore the RSVP card off the fridge and put it in the drawer under my tax receipts and expired coupons. Somewhere it couldn't haunt me anymore. That night, I dreamed I was standing outside a glass building, watching my son get married on the other side. Everyone was clapping. Champagne was flowing. But I couldn't get in. The door wouldn't open. I pounded the glass, but no one looked up. I woke up with tears on my cheeks. There's a point in every mother's life when she realizes her child has chosen someone else over her. I just never imagined mine would do it with such precision, such finality. And what I didn't know then, what I would discover soon after, was that this wasn't just about exclusion. No, it went much deeper than that. Something had been taken from me, and they thought I wouldn't notice. But I did, and I was about to find out exactly what it was. It started with the florist, not mine. Hers. Nina had chosen some boutique downtown that specialized in rare orchids and wedding arrangements that looked more like architectural installations than bouquets. I'd gone in one afternoon, call it curiosity, or maybe a quiet need to still feel tethered to the event I'd been cut from. The woman behind the counter had a gentle voice, the kind that curls around you like a scarf. "Can I help you?" I smiled. "Actually, I'm just looking. My son's getting married next week. I think you're doing the flowers." "Oh," she said brightly. "You must be Paul's mother." I blinked. "Yes," I said, surprised. "I am." "Oh, he and Nina are so lovely. And generous. They added a second arrangement for the ceremony on short notice. Said it was for his mother's corner at the reception." I felt something tighten in my chest. "I'm sorry, his mother's corner?" She nodded, already flipping through her notebook. "Yes, they said it had to be elegant but understated. A special section with a framed photo since you wouldn't be attending." Framed photo, like I was dead. "Oh," I whispered, because it was all I could manage. I turned on my heel and walked out before the tears could rise. I made it to my car, sat behind the wheel, and stared out the windshield. That's when I saw the pattern, like dominoes falling. The mail had started arriving in strange amounts. Statements from my bank with tiny withdrawals I didn't remember authorizing. A strange $600 charge from a catering company I'd never heard of. The electricity bill for the lake house, a property I'd never owned, never even visited. I went home and pulled the file drawer open, sat at the kitchen table and laid everything out, page by page, date by date, cross referencing amounts, names, patterns. That's when I found it. A joint credit card opened 5 months ago, under my name, with Nina's listed as an authorized user. I sat in the quiet hum of my kitchen, the ticking of the wall clock suddenly deafening as my fingers traced the document like it might vanish. She had used my information. She had used me. And Paul, he had to know. Or at least, he hadn't asked enough questions not to know. I called the bank. The woman on the line was polite, professional. Yes, ma'am, this account was opened with digital authorization, using your social security number and linked to your primary checking. And the secondary user? I asked, though I already knew. Nina Weston. Can I see a record of charges? Of course, she said. It might take a moment. I waited. Tea forgotten, hands clenched. When the PDF hit my inbox, I opened it. There it was, the florist, the bridal salon, the rehearsal dinner deposit, even the linen rentals, the fancy embroidered napkins I wouldn't be allowed to touch. They had planned the whole wedding on my credit, in my name, without even telling me. And now I wasn't just excluded. I was footing the bill. I called Paul. I was shaking. He didn't pick up. I texted him, call me, now. He replied, can't talk. Busy with last-minute stuff. Everything okay? I didn't answer. I printed the statement. Every page. Drove to his condo. My hands were trembling by the time I rang the bell. Nina opened the door. She was in yoga pants and a robe, her hair pulled back into a soft bun. She looked surprised. Oh, hi. Where is he? Nina glanced over her shoulder. Paul's at the tux fitting. Can I help you with something? I held up the folder. I'd like to know why your wedding is on my credit card. She blinked. It was so quick. The flash of panic in her eyes. She covered it fast, like all good liars do. I'm sorry, what? Don't insult me, Nina. I have the charges, the statements, the proof. You stole my identity, you used my money, and you cut me out. Me. Her hand went to the necklace at her throat, a nervous tick. I didn't steal anything. Paul said it was fine. That you offered. I offered? My voice cracked on the word. I stepped into the doorway. She didn't stop me. Do you know how humiliating it is, I said quietly, to be excluded from my son's wedding and still be the one paying for the wine? She tried to speak. I saw her mouth open, but no sound came. Tell him I came by, I said, my voice steeled now. Tell him I'll be filing a fraud report tomorrow, and tell him he has until then to make this right. Then I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My hands were trembling when I got to my car, but this time, it wasn't weakness. It was rage, pure and clean. I wasn't going to be buried under their lies. Not this time. The next morning, I walked into the bank with every document I had: statements, digital authorizations, a copy of the joint account application with my forged signature. Linda, the branch manager, looked at me with wide, serious eyes. Rose, she said softly, are you sure you want to proceed with a fraud report? Once it's filed, it can't be undone. I nodded. My hands were steady. I'm sure, and I want the card frozen immediately. She tapped at her keyboard, printed some forms, slid them across the desk. We'll start an investigation today. It should have felt like victory. It didn't. It felt like betrayal given shape. On my way out, I stopped by the police department. A young officer took my statement, his eyes flicking up occasionally with disbelief, then growing dark with recognition as he read the evidence. Identity theft involving a family member is hard, he said, handing me a case number. But this is open and shut. I thanked him, walked out, sat in my car, watched people stroll by, smiling, sipping coffee, holding hands, planning their weddings without using their mothers like walking ATMs. By the time I got home, Paul had called me twice, left a voicemail the third time. Mom, it's Paul. I don't know what Nina did or didn't do, but can we please just talk before this goes too far? Don't do anything rash. Please. I didn't call back. I didn't have the energy to soothe him. Not anymore. That afternoon, a knock on the door. I opened it, and there he was, my son, my only child, standing on my porch looking like a teenager caught in a lie. Mom, he said. His voice was low but not soft. Urgent. Defensive. Don't come in, I said. I stood in the doorway like a threshold. I need to explain, he said. No, I replied. You need to listen. He looked startled. Hurt. Good. Let him feel it. You lied to me. You let her lie to me. You used my name, my credit, my money. And then you cut me out of your life like I was a bad smell you didn't want wafting down the aisle. Mom, I didn't know she used your... She forged my signature, Paul. You think she did that alone? You think I believe she went through all those documents without your help? My son, who used to triple check cereal ingredients before eating them, suddenly trusts someone else with opening financial accounts in my name? His mouth opened, closed. I saw his throat tighten. I didn't read the paperwork, he admitted. She said it was a formality. A formality? I laughed, dry, bitter. You mean the same way I was a formality on your guest list? A ghost at your celebration? A framed photo instead of a presence? His eyes welled. I didn't think you'd want to come. You didn't ask. Silence, the kind that hangs thick and unforgiving in the air. He looked down at his shoes, the fancy kind with brown leather and pointless little tassels. She thought you'd be uncomfortable, he muttered. Uncomfortable? I stepped forward, just enough to close the distance. Let me tell you what uncomfortable is. It's finding out the only seat you're getting at your son's wedding is one carved into a centerpiece like you died years ago. It's realizing you've been robbed not just of money, but of respect, of presence, of place. Mom, he whispered. No, I snapped. You don't get to cry. Not here. You had every chance to speak up, to say, I want my mother there. You didn't. Tears slid down his cheeks, but I didn't reach for him. I didn't flinch. You want to fix this? Then cancel the card. Apologize. In public. Not behind some closed door like a shameful secret. And don't you dare try to spin this as some misunderstanding. I have the receipts. He reached out like he might touch my arm. I stepped back. I'm not a tragic figure, Paul. I'm not waiting to be rescued. But I am done being used. Mom, please, he said again. But I closed the door. I locked it. Then I sat down and let the quiet fill the house like a balm. That evening, I opened the drawer where I kept every letter he'd ever written me. Father's Day cards signed by a crayon-scrawled, Love Polly. Handwritten thank you notes from college. A note from the Christmas he was 12, when he spent his allowance on a snow globe for me and wrote, To the best mom in the world, I love you forever. I pressed my fingers to the page. Forever, I whispered. What a short forever that turned out to be. The next morning I got a call. It was from Nina. Her voice was tight, clipped. You're making a scene, she said. I smiled, sat back in my chair. I haven't begun making a scene, Nina. There was a pause. Then she snapped, Paul's heartbroken. Then she... Good. Let it break. Maybe something better will grow in its place. You're ruining our wedding. You already ruined your marriage before it started. You married a son with no spine and a mother with too much proof. Click. She hung up. But I wasn't done. Because that night, I found one more document. Buried in an old box of Paul's school papers. An old durable power of attorney form from years ago when I'd helped him with a down payment. Still valid, still binding, and his signature? Unmistakable. I looked at it. Then at the blank letterhead on my desk. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled. Because I wasn't just going to stop the wedding, I was going to own it. I didn't stop the wedding. I didn't have to, because by the time the truth finished unfolding, there was no wedding left to stop. It began 2 days after Nina hung up on me. I mailed a single sealed envelope to the venue with a simple cover letter. To whom it may concern, the charges for this event were made under fraudulent authorization. The primary account holder has filed a criminal complaint and is not responsible for payment. I attached the police report and bank fraud case number. That was enough. By the following morning, the planner called Nina. The florist canceled. The caterer followed. One by one, the dominoes fell, until the glossy scaffolding of their curated fairy tale collapsed under its own false weight. And Paul? He showed up on my doorstep at dusk, looking like a man who had just crawled out of a collapsed mine. His suit jacket was wrinkled. There were dark shadows under his eyes. His mouth trembled when he opened it. "She left," he said, his voice barely audible. I waited. "She packed everything this morning?" Said I ruined everything, that she couldn't marry into a family that aired dirty laundry. He let out a hollow laugh. "I asked her why she did it, Mom. Why she used your name, your money. And she just looked at me and said, because she wouldn't have said yes otherwise." I sat down on the porch bench, leaving space beside me. He didn't sit. "I was wrong," he said. "I let her twist everything. I let her tell me you were too much, too opinionated, too needy. But all she meant was, you couldn't be controlled." I closed my eyes for a long moment. When I opened them, I saw the boy he had been in the man he had become. Scared, tired, standing in the wreckage of choices that were never fully his. "Did you love her?" I asked. He hesitated, then shook his head slowly. "I thought I did. But I think I just loved who I got to be when I was with her. She made everything look perfect. I didn't realize she was draining the people who actually cared about me to keep the illusion alive." We sat in silence. A few porch lights flicked on down the street. The cicadas hummed. The air smelled like dry grass and endings. Finally, he spoke again. "I'm so sorry, Mom. For the wedding. For the card. For all of it." I nodded. "I know," I said softly. "But sorry isn't magic. It doesn't fix what's broken. It just proves you know it's broken." He nodded, eyes wet now. "I don't expect forgiveness," he whispered, and there he was wrong. Because I had already forgiven him. Not for him, for me. Forgiveness wasn't a gift I handed him like a ribbon-tied box. It was a key I used to unlock myself from the prison of his betrayal. The anger had burned through me like a fever. But now, sitting here with the last of the truth between us, all that remained was ash and clarity. "I do forgive you, Paul," I said finally. "But things can't go back to how they were." He nodded. "Then, what now?" "You rebuild," I said. "You grow, you start over, not just with others, but with yourself. You be the kind of man who never again lets silence stand in for strength." He looked at me with the wide, broken eyes of a child trying to stand on legs that had forgotten how. "I'll try." "Good," I said, standing, "because next time you won't have me to catch you." He left with the weight of that truth. He needed it. I needed it. And I stayed on the porch long after he was gone. The next morning, I baked. I didn't know why exactly, grief, maybe, or muscle memory. But there was peace in the rhythm. Mixing, measuring, folding. I made lemon scones, the same kind I made the week after my mother died. When they cooled, I set one on a plate, poured myself a cup of tea, and sat by the window. It was raining. A soft, forgiving rain. The kind that nourishes things you thought were dead. I thought about all the weddings I'd imagined. All the toasts I'd rehearsed in my mind. The mother-son dance I never got. The table where my name never was. But I also thought about something deeper. That I had not lost myself in the losing of it. That my name did belong, just not at their table. At mine. And maybe, just maybe, that was the real homecoming. Because here, in this quiet house with the scent of lemon and lavender and rain, I had reclaimed something more sacred than pride. I had reclaimed my place, not in their story, in mine. And let me tell you something, darling. Sometimes the greatest love is not the one you give away. It's the one you learn to keep for yourself.